Good morning, everyone. It's now time to start. I'm Francesca Spagnoli, and I'm the Project Communications Lead for SynchroniCity, and I'm working from the European Network of Living Labs in Brussels. It's a pleasure to have you all today connected here. I will chair this session. We are expecting more people to come, but I think it's important to start now because we have a very packed agenda. After my welcome, Martin Brinskov, the coordinator of the SynchroniCity project, will introduce you to the project. Is working for Aarhus University. Then we will dive into the SynchroniCity open call general information from Gemma Aguilera, that is working at the Future Cities Catapult in London, and she is the coordinator of the open call for the project. Then there will be the short presentation by Martino Maggio, responsible for the SynchroniCity framework, and is working for Ingegneria Informatica in Italy. And then we will have some information about the administrative requirements for the open call, and will be presented from Gemma Aguilera as well. We will take questions only in written forms, as we are more than 80 attendees here. Will be too difficult to give the floor to all the people, but as you can see from the GoToMeeting panel, we have here a section on the webcam that is questions, and you can write questions. I will group all the questions, and I will assign the replies to the specific responsible from SynchroniCity, so you can have these replies. Also, we will create a frequently asked system. We already have one in the website of SynchroniCity, but we will update with all the questions you will make to us. So you can always go into the website and see the replies also later on. As you know, we will receive applications until 30th of September, so you will have plenty of time to ask questions to us. We will have also an help desk system in our website and a forum system, so you can directly send us all your questions that you will have later on. We will have now also a pause during this webinar. We will include a pause, and we will ask to be replied to this pause, so we can also take general information from your site. We will have some closing remarks then, and we will end the session. We will try to make short presentations, so we will give more time to the questions and answer section. So I invite now the coordinator of the project, Martin Briscoe, to start with the introduction of SynchroniCity. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you, everyone, for being here. For us, I think it's a little bit like a birthday. We have been working at least 2 years to get to this point where we can invite you all. Well, at least it feels like a very great relief to be finally inviting you to take part in what we perceive as a quite important and exciting step towards the digital transformation on the terms of cities and citizens. The main focus of SynchroniCity is to reach scale, mainstream, with IoT and smart cities. And I'm sure that all of you are already working in this field, otherwise you would not be here. We're just back from the IoT week in Bilbao, where we had the community together. Lots of the people came from all over the world, and I think we got really good feedback when Gemma and the colleagues presented the open call launch there. We are not the only ones. Large-scale pilots, there are 5, and 3 of them have open calls. So food and farming is also a topic, and we have active and healthy aging, so welfare technologies on our sides, but we focus on the cross-sectoral city and community side, so it doesn't have to be in a city, just to make that point. Together, we're giving out 9.6 million euros out of a more than 100 million euros budget, so we give about 10% to others. I think that's a very strong sign that we don't believe that we know all the answers. We really maybe just want to be a kind of facilitator for what you want to achieve in coming from the experimentation to the mainstream. You're all those of you who are companies, you are trying to commercialize your products in a relevant ways to cities. Cities are trying to find relevant ways to scale up and understand, okay, so does this work here with us? Who are our peers, our fellow cities who have tried it already? And it's exactly this standards-based, large-scale procurement and innovation circle that we want to get moving even further. It's based on the Open Agile Smart Cities initiative. So a lot of cities basically coming together, establishing a simple common ground, and then all the companies can compete on top of that. And in fact, the cities can come with different ways of doing it. So we don't want to impose a lot of technical constraints. And certainly we don't want to put to you a lot of, let's say, vendor-specific solutions. We want to be interoperable. We want to be replaceable, right? So that the good solutions can actually be decomposed. Let's see how we get there. So without further, sorry. So without further ado, I will invite you to hear the presentations from the colleagues from Gemma and Martino, especially on the technical side. And as Francesca said, we will be focusing on giving you the floor for questions. We only take written questions using the GoToWebinar questions feature, so please find it, and you can start sending your questions already now. We will give the handouts to you as well, and there will be some polls in between and a small survey. So, okay. Thanks for coming. It's really great to see the attention and the excitement around. Just as a final remark, two things. One question that we don't get a lot, but I think we should answer is it easy to create a synchronicity pilot? And I would say yes and no. If you're already in this and you have done experiments, if you have a team on the ground, if you're working across cities, yes, this is exactly what you need, I would say. If you're coming to this for the first time just to see, okay, how can we start up building experimentation capacity, this is not for you. This is for mature systems. We will come back to this. It's stuff that works, but it needs to be validated across cities and reach the mainstream and spread out, right? So while it's just what you need if you are, let's say, at one point, it can be quite challenging if you're not. But we hope to be able to clarify all of these things. Back to you, Francesca, and then over to you, Gemma. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Hello, it's Gemma here. I think it's my turn now. Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to see so many people actually joining this webinar. As Martin said, it's a very exciting moment for us, and we are really looking forward to see what you can bring into the plate, let's say, and what experiments you are going to bring in. But before doing that, I will explain a little bit what is this open call, what is it about, what are the criteria, so that you can make a better picture of if this is the type of open call you want to apply or not. And you will have plenty of time during this 4 months that we will be open to ask questions and interact with us. So today what I'm gonna talk about is, first I'm gonna go through essential guidelines, what the main characteristic of this open call. I will then give the floor to Martino, which is the lead of our technical site, and he will explain a little bit the technical framework of Synchronicity. We'll go to the administrative side, so the evaluation process, APR, and some specific issues here, and then what's next. So let me introduce myself a little bit better. So I'm Gemma Aguilera. I work I'm the SME program lead at Future Cities Catapult. This is an innovation center on future cities. We prefer to say future cities than smart cities in London, but I'm also leading the open call in Synchronicity. So let me click here. Let's see if it works. Here it is. In principle, what we try to do with SynchroniCity is to open up a global IoT market where cities and businesses develop shared digital services to improve the life of cities and their local economies. So to do that, what we've done is not to create a completely new IoT architecture for cities to adopt, because this wouldn't work. It hasn't worked in the past. Cities are complex systems and they are used to their legacy systems. So instead, what we've done is to identify like the minimum interoperability points and mechanisms which are very simple to adopt in their IoT already existing architecture, so that they can adopt it, and then we can make a reality this interoperability, replicability, and reusability of IoT solutions. So we have in our consortium, in our group, several cities, which will be actually the pilot cities on this open call here in Europe. We have Helsinki, we have Manchester, Eindhoven, Antwerp, Carouge, Milan, Santander, and Porto. These are our core pilot cities. What are we trying to achieve with this open call? So the first thing that we want to do is to validate the SynchroniCity vision that I just mentioned about, its technical framework and open call methodology as a model for large scale standard-based innovation and procurement. So maybe it can be used later on for IoT services in cities and communities as pre-procurement processes in Europe. Another very important point or main objective of this open call is to demonstrate the interoperability, replicability, reusability, and scalability of IoT human-centric solutions across cities and across domains. Also, we want to build an ecosystem around it to ensure its expansion and sustainability. And finally, we would like also to shape and adopt new smart city standards in Europe and beyond. Who is it for? That's the important bit. So who is this open call for? We are looking for small and medium enterprises which can offer an IoT application or a full stack solution. Full stack solution, meaning like all enclosed type of solution, which has an infrastructure, middleware, and application built on top of it. We are looking for those solutions that have already been demonstrated in a relevant environment. So the solutions need to be mature, need to be technology readiness level 6 or above. So, and this is to the point of Martin, we are here not going to be funding early stage solutions. We want solutions, SMEs, which are already mature, solutions which are mature, but which are already like open to scale. So they've already tested, they've already demonstrated in a relevant environment, and the next step for them is to scale, because at the end of the day, we want to demonstrate this interoperability, replicability, reusability, and scalability of solutions. So these are going to be the lead SMEs. At the same time, we don't want to prescribe the market how they should behave. So we allow you to partner with other stakeholders in the market. So this open call is also open to new cities and to large businesses. While the SME lead can apply alone or in a pilot group, the cities and the large businesses can only apply in a pilot group, so in a consortium. How you organize this consortium is really up to you. It only has the requirement that has to be led by an SME lead, which can offer an application or a full stack solution. Other SMEs can be part of the consortium, new cities, large businesses as well. So, so we have a 3 million pot for the whole open call. We will be funding between 10 to 25 smart city solutions. You will need to pilot your solution in at least 2 cities, because again, we need to prove and demonstrate this interoperability and replicability. But preferably, we would like you to demonstrate it in more than 2. Within these 2 cities, one needs to be one of the core pilot cities that I just mentioned, one of the 8. And you can bring also new cities into play within your pilot group. And then you will have like a period time for demonstration of about 6 months or up to 6 months. So what is the eligibility criteria? Well, there's going to be like certain points you need to fulfill if you want to apply for this open call. First of all, you need to submit the application online. So the open call was open on the 1st of June 2018, and it will close on the 30th of September 2018 at 5 o'clock Brussels time. So you need to apply on time. That's a given. The application needs to be led by an SME, again, what I've mentioned before, and the SME needs to be conformant with the EU definition of small and medium enterprise. You'll be able to find all this information on our website. If you go to our website, you will see, like in the open call tab, that there's going to be a toolkit either for businesses, so SMEs and large businesses, or for cities. Just download it and all the information can be found there. We have also downloaded all this documentation in the handout section, so you can access it directly from this webinar. Of course, the proposals need to be complete. You don't need to leave anything empty, any field empty. The language, it's English. If you bring a new pilot city in your group, you will need a letter of support of this new pilot city. You will need to demonstrate your solution in at least 2 cities, but preferably more. You don't need, this is important, to be affiliated to any of the SynchroniCity consortium partners. There is a list of the consortium partners in the guidelines for applicants. You also need to be compliant with the SynchroniCity ethics and privacy guidelines. You will be able to sign a form to ensure that you comply with our ethics and privacy guidelines. Your proposal needs to be within the scope of the call, and we'll talk about this scope later on. And you need to include eligible activities for funding, which again are mentioned and stated in the guidelines for applicants. So the scope of this open call is pretty broad, actually. So we have tried to identify the main challenges that all these 8 cities face, and we came up with these themes and challenges. So the first one is about sustainable mobility and the challenges associated to it. It's enabling mobility as a service, so how we can enable multimodal transportation system, accessibility of real-time data of transport modes, etc., etc. The second, it's encouraging more non-motorized transport. Okay, so how can we encourage citizens to use active transport more often, for instance? The second theme we have is environment and well-being, within which we have climate change mitigation. So how can you address heat stress or flooding, for instance? And the other one, which is self-descriptive, is reducing noise and air pollution. We have a third challenge on citizen engagement, so increasing citizen engagement in decision making. Or another challenge, increasing a greater level of diversity in political engagement. Okay, and then we have a fourth challenge, or fourth theme and challenge, which is open. Why? This is probably for those solutions which are perhaps more disruptive or more innovative, or somehow they don't fit in these in the themes that we propose. So you will be also able to apply within that one. Who knows? We don't know what you can propose. We don't have all the answers, as we say, and you may be able to propose a solution which is very interesting for our cities. So that's also a possibility that you will have. You will have to choose, when you apply, you will have to choose one of the challenges within that table. So let me see if I can. So here I show you like a table of the challenges that our cities subscribe to. So if you want to pilot into cities, please make sure that the cities actually have subscribed to this challenge. Mainly, most of them are interested in all of them, but but just have a look at it. The funding, how is the funding going to be distributed? So as I said, we have the 3 million and we will distribute it as follows. So if the SME applies a loan, you will be able to receive up to 100,000 euros. If the SME applies in a pilot group of 2, the group will be able to get funded up to 200,000 euros. And if the SME applies in a pilot group of 3 or more organizations, the whole team or the whole group will be able to get funded of up to 300,000 euros. We will co-fund only 80% of the total individual budget. The remaining 20% needs to be provided by the applicants, either as in-kind support or by bringing funding into the project, so cash. The cities and large businesses are only able to receive up to 60,000 euros. Then let me say that this open call is open to all SMEs, cities and large businesses from all over the world, but only those who are from the EU or the Horizon 2020 associated countries are eligible for funding. Again, this information, this list, is within our guidelines if you download the documentation. Timeline. We have this timeline on the website. I just invite you to have a look later on. I just only will pinpoint the main, let's say, deadlines or points in the timeline. So the main one is the 30th of September. This is going to be the deadline for the application period. And it opened on the 1st of June. So then it will come like a period for the evaluation of the projects, and we will announce the winners by the end of November. Then it will come like a time where there's going to be a resubmission or rescoping of a few proposals. And finally, we will start the pilot phase in February. And it will take from February to September 2019. Be aware that at the very beginning of February, just before we start the pilots, we will have a 2-day, what we call it, bonding and customization workshop. So you have to include this into the budget when you apply for this open call. You can ask for money from the European Synchronicity open call to cover this bonding and customization workshop. It's compulsory. I think this is going to be very important because it's where the projects will be really shaped. Okay. Now I will give the floor to Martino, who's leading the technical bit, that he will explain a little bit what is the technical framework around Synchronicity. So Martino, all yours.
Thank you, Gemma. This is Martino Maggio from Engineering Informatica. In the Synchronicity project, I'm the leader of the technical architecture of the project, in general, all the technical stuff of the services of the Synchronicity framework. So, okay, yes. So these are the base principles that we follow when we designed the technical framework of Synchronicity. So basically, the idea is to have neutral branding. So we base on the OASC standards and specification. That means that we don't want to impose any specific technology for the Synchronicity framework, but we want to base on existing standards and well-used technologies to support the city to enter without technological barrier in the Synchronicity project and I would say framework. We based also our technical infrastructure on the concept of minimal interoperability mechanism. That basically means that we define some basic interfaces that are the entry point to connect the existing infrastructures with Synchronicity, on the other end, that are able to provide the functionality of the Synchronicity framework to the third-party application, for example, the open call participant and application. Basically, these minimal interoperability mechanisms are based on open APIs, so APIs that are based on standards and that are open, and common data model. So the common data models are basically the way to talk the same language in the different cities and to enable the interoperability between the applications. So building an application based on open and standard API and common data models for sure will enable the replicability of the same application, the same services in different cities. That is one of the objectives of the project and of the open call. And also we provide for sure not simply a specification of this architecture and this API, but we provide also reference implementation of the standard services. And for sure we also offer a sort of cloud-based services sandbox that is possible to use to test the services and to test the API. So this is a very high-level overview of the Synchronicity architecture. This picture is taken from the architectural deliverable that you can find in the website. So we have already available in the website the first version of the architecture, but we are going to provide in a few days the final version of the architecture, so you can find all this technical information in this deliverable. Basically, what we defined in our logical architecture are different layers. These different layers, as you can see, provide several functionalities that are basically related to the IoT management, so to the management of the devices and the protocols, and that allow the connection between the existing IoT infrastructure of the cities with the Synchronicity framework, the context data management, that is very important and crucial elements because it's able to manage the context information that basically are the information that comes from the IoT devices provide this data in a uniform way and also following the same data models as we said before. Then we have the data storage management that is about all the functionalities related to the data, private and open data management. We have two transversal components that are security and monitoring and platform management that are related to the specific functionality to security and privacy and to the platform management. And we have the IoT data marketplace that is a very important component, that is the place in which the data of the different cities and the different stakeholders participating in Synchronicity can share their data. And it is also able to provide a catalog and several functionalities related to the monetization of this data and all the related process. As you can see in our architecture, fundamentally it's very important the red parts, so the red blocks that are the interoperability points. So these are the most important parts because are, as I said before, the interfaces that allow city and applications, city from the southbound part and application from the northbound to access to the Synchronicity functionalities. So for the city, the focus is basically on these interoperability points and also on the application. So it's very important to be compliant with these interoperability points. It's not important the technology of the components inside the specific implementation, but it's important to expose this API. What we call interoperability mechanisms basically are the actual and the concrete specification of this API that has been defined because, as I said before, we define these logical components, logical functionalities and API, but also we defined a concrete implementation of this API. So it's possible to see from this table. Yes, next one, please. To this table that the interoperability mechanism, so the Synchronicity API that we showed before, are related to specifically related standard and existing initiative. And you can find also in this table the links to directly access to the documentation of this API that are already available online. As you can see, basically these interoperability mechanisms are based on existing standards. In particular, for example, for the context management API, we based this API on NGSI. Also, in particular, also we are working on NGSI LD, that is this new, I would say, specification for NGSI linked data for them that is going to be standardized by ETSI. For the other API, as you can see, we base, for example, security on or out and marketplace API on PM Forum API. So we want to start from existing interfaces, existing initiatives, and to not reinvent the wheel for sure. So here you can find all the necessary links to the documentation for sure in the website, also in the Synchronicity website, in the docs page, you can find also the information related to the document. This last slide is related to the project resources, technical resources. So the project is already provided some technical resources. Apart from the Synchronicity API documentation, as you can see, we also have a GitLab repository in which you can find, you will find for sure also in the next week all the components that we provide as a reference implementation. So for each of the components that you saw in the logical architecture, we provide a concrete component that is possible to download from the GitHub, are open components. Some of these are based on the fireware ecosystem, other not, and it's possible to directly download and install. You can find all these components provided as Docker containers, so it's very easily to deploy in infrastructure. You can also have the access to connecting to the Synchronicity API documentation website. You can also have the link to connect to the cloud instance, in which you can test directly the services. And also you have other resources such as the API website, the open data platform for Synchronicity that collect all the open data from the different cities. So you have here some links to these resources, but the website you can find anything. So I think that I finish. So I pass it to my colleague for the administrative part. Thank you.
Thank you, Martino. Thank you so much for your presentation, and Jem as well. I'm just interrupting you for the presentation because we have this whole section that now is live, and we really would like to reply to the questions. So let's start with the first one. What kind of organization do you represent? It's really important for us to see from what kind of organization you are from, because it's important to then make some analytics and to see what is the attraction of the cities or SMEs or NGOs or large enterprises for the open call. Okay, we will go to the second poll later. We are now in the process of collecting responses. I just would like you to remember that in the handout section you can find all the PDFs that are already available in the website, but you can use for reference here to look at it while the speakers are presenting the open call. What is really important is the open call at a glance. It's different from cities or from SMEs perspective. We have also the Synchronicity framework cards and one-page guidance and the guide for SMEs and business applicants. What is also important to say is that yes? No, I'm taking questions. I'm recording questions, so please don't be afraid to ask questions because this is the most important part of the webinar. We will have just one presentation more from Gemma about the administrative parts, and then we will dive into the questions. So please send them, and we will reply to you as soon as the presentation will be finished. Okay. So the first poll is closed now. Let's go to the second poll because we have 4 polls and only one presentation more, and then we will start with administrative part. The second poll is, how many cities are you thinking of targeting? Please reply to the poll. It looks like 76% already voted. I will give it just 1 minute more, and then we will close the poll. Okay, thank you so much for voting. Now I'll give the floor again to Gemma Guilera for the administrative part of the open call presentation.
Thank you, Francesca. So yeah, now it's the last bit, more administrative. Before going into that, just let me make a point regarding this technical interoperability point and mechanism that Martina was presenting. So these are the mechanism interoperability points that cities are, our 8 core pilot cities are currently adopting. Most of them, they are almost there. So all this information, again, will be very soon available on the website. And also, these are the points that you, as an SME or as a pilot group, will need to interact with to access the Synchronicity framework. And it's important you do so to show that there is interoperability between our cities and the replicability of your solution. So just very quickly this point, then let's go to the administrative. The first thing I put, actually, it's a question on APR. I know this type of questions come over and over again, very sensibly from you. I'm sure you want to know what's going on or what will happen with your IP, the intellectual property rights, and with your data. So just to make this point, from in the Synchronicity open call, the API will remain yours or of your pilot group. So Synchronicity will not retain any equity on your project, but we may ask you to share all the findings and be presenting in order to share all the benefits of the Synchronicity project. This we will ask you to contribute to this sharing, knowledge sharing, and of Synchronicity and of your project. So in a way, it's going to be an amplification system for you because we will be also talking about it. In terms of data, so we are a smart city project where many cities are involved. It's a complex market. So the type of data and systems which are available are very diverse. So if we try to create one single way of doing things, we will never succeed. So we will be able actually to find open data, closed data with open access and restricted access. And each city has its own kind of policies and preference around it. So it's up to you, it's your responsibility to understand what are their conditions. We will have hints along the way. So there's like hints in one of our documentation in the, I think it's the Synchronicity framework. We have city scars at the end as an annex. There's like hints there. We will also be providing more information if you subscribe to our newsletter. But basically, it's going to be up to you. And the data and how this is going to be shared is through a contractual sharing agreement that you will sign once you've won the open call between you or your pilot group, and all the relevant open call pilot cities you will be piloting in. Then, in terms of the evaluation process, how are you going to be evaluated? Well, we have 4 different criteria. So one is excellent, impact, feasibility, and sustainability, and we will be scoring it from 0 to 5 points each of these criteria. If there is, so the ones which are very important, actually, or more important than the others, will be the feasibility and the sustainability. So in case there is an equal score, feasibility and sustainability will always prevail. So for instance, excellent, we are going to look at what is the vision, ambition, and the value proposition of your solution. In the impact, for instance, it's going to be important that you set your own KPIs and you show why are those key performance indicators, how are you going to measure the social, economic, and environmental impact of your solutions and how this will affect the communities. In terms of feasibility, we're going to look at different levels of feasibility: technical, team, and budget and work plan. So technical will be very, very important. You need, as we said, your solution needs to be mature enough, needs to be ready, needs to be already tested. So there's going to be a very thorough check on the technical feasibility. Also, you need to say why you apply alone or why you apply in a certain pilot group, and how the team complements each other. And also we like to see if your project is feasible within the budget and work plan that you will provide us. In terms of sustainability, here we are going to look very thoroughly on how you demonstrate the interoperability, replicability, and reusability of your solutions. So basically it's that. How this is going to happen? What is going to be this process of the evaluation? So basically, we will be receiving your applications by the 13th of September. At that point, we will anonymize your proposals and we will do the eligibility check. So we are going to look at these points that I showed you before. And if you don't comply with any of those points, your proposal will be rejected. Then each of your proposal will be evaluated by 3 independent evaluators, which is a mix between some internal evaluators and some external evaluators. These evaluators will be some technical reviewers or evaluators, some which have a more city-9, so city reviewers, and the other who has a more commercial mindset type of reviewers. The first that are going to check your proposal will be the technical ones. As I said, they will look that you are making use of the interoperability points and that technically your solution is feasible. If it's not, your proposal will be rejected. And then the rest of the reviewers will evaluate. We will evaluate, as I mentioned, based on impact, excellence, feasibility, and sustainability. We will score. There's going to be an average score. And those who score 14 or higher will go through the process. The others will get rejected. Finally, when we have this final list already there, we will have like a meeting or a whole day meeting or even longer, whatever it's necessary, where we will evaluate one by one, taking into considerations other elements like we need to have a geographical balance, also in themes and challenges, the pilot views, and also if there's again equal score, we will impose feasibility and sustainability above impact and excellence. We will have then a final list, and we will check, very importantly, on the ethics and privacy. So you will be actually providing an ethics and privacy. We'll be filling in an ethics and privacy questionnaire, and this will be checked by our ethics and privacy board. And then based on also ethics and privacy, your project could be also disregarded. Nonetheless, I don't expect anybody to be disregarded at this stage. It's going to be only a matter of administration, I would say. And then by the end of November, we will advertise or announce the winners of the open call. Yes. How to apply? In our website, also, if you download the toolkit, you will see that there's several templates and some visuals which could be quite useful for you. Here, for instance, we have the one of how to apply. If you download it, it will be easy for you to follow a journey. What do you need to do? Go to the website. Okay, I go there, download and read the documentation. Go there. You can go ticking it. So that would help you through the process. But if, again, you have any issue, please let us know. And I will let you know how you can contact us just in a moment. So that's how to apply. That's a very useful, let's say, piece of or visual which can help you there. So what's next? What's next? The first thing I would say that you need to do is first go to our website. If you are interested in Synchronicity in general, just subscribe to our newsletter. If you're interested in the open call, go and read the one-pager on how to read the documentation. There's quite a few documents there, and before you read everything, just make sure what's every single document. Then you can read the open call at a glance. You can also download it from our website. And the open call at a glance is basically a summary of what I have just explained. This should give you enough information for you to know if you really want to proceed and apply for this open call or not. So if you decide not to go for it, you don't need to read the rest of the documentation. If you go for it, then you will need to go and download all the documents where all the open call is explained in detail. There's going to be all the legal associated to it. So all the more administrative, let's say, part of this open call. So if you decide to go for it, just go and the two main documents will be the open call guidelines. That's all the open call in detail, and the Synchronicity framework, which gives you an overview of what Martino has just explained. There's going to be also templates and visuals for you to check if you want. I would recommend that, but you don't need to read like all the details. In the templates, probably the most important documentation is the application form template. You will see the questions that we will be asking you for the proposal, and what points are we going to look at for the evaluation. So during this application process, so these 4 months where the open call will be open, you will be able to ask questions and interact with us. The main, let's say, path to do that, it's first you go just to our website. There is an open call and support, and there you will find all these type of support options. The first one will be the open forum. This is for you to ask questions in an open manner. This is the main way where we will interact with you. However, if you have some private questions, then you can use the help desk, which is also available for you to use at any time you want. Then we will have clinics, and we will add very soon on the website all the clinics that we will be holding in each of the cities. So the clinics is each of our core pilot cities will be getting like half a day or 1 day of their time, several times in these 4 months, where they will be open to your questions. So you will be able to drop in their to the city hall or wherever they set these clinics, or you will be able to call them. So it's going to be a one-to-one type of interaction with the cities. This is the main way of how you can ask them questions. We will be holding webinars like this one, probably sometime soon. Francesca will let us know. And also just check our website for that. And then we are building now a Connect section. Many people ask, how can I find a partner? So while this is not our responsibility, we are not gonna be actively supporting this. What we will do is facilitate that. So we will have a section within our website where you will be able to post what you are looking for, what do you have, and you will be able to find the right partners. We will also have some link to other associations that the remit is actually matchmaking, this kind of organizations. And finally, the application platform that we will have soon on our website, the link, it's an online application platform. It's called Submittable, and it will have a look very much like that. So you'll have an administrative part and then the technical questionnaire where we will ask you all the questions that you will need to fill. I don't think this is going to be more than 10 pages or so. You will be able also to add a small video if you want, or you can attach a few slides, extra slides that you can present also in this platform. And I think probably that's everything I wanted to say. These are all the partners in the consortium of Synchronicity. And that's it. Thank you very much. I think that we can take questions now. Thanks for listening and bearing with us.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Thanks for the presentation. We already received a lot of questions, but before diving into the questions, let's go to the polls and reply to the last two polls. We would like to know from the participants if they are looking for partners. So please reply to this question. Okay, thank you for your replies. Now the poll is closed. Let's go into the last poll. Please reply to this question. Have you been engaged with Horizon 2020 projects before? Thank you for replying to the poll. Thank you so much. Just to let you know, since we received a question about it, the poll results will be shared with the viewers. We will make a news on our website, and we will share also these results through our social media about who are the companies that participated in the categories of people that participated in the webinar, if companies, large SMEs. And in any case, you should be able to see the poll results now as well. We would like to reply as well to a survey. We're going to send out to you the specific survey afterwards, and all this information will be taken into account, and we will create this news. You will be able to see this presentation slide deck also via the GoToMeeting webinar link, and will be available in the handouts section also after the end of this call. The session has been also recorded, and also the question and answer session will be recorded. So in any case, we will make this material available on our website also after the end of the webinar. As Gemma said, we are going to have more webinars because we have seen that a lot of participants and potential applicants are interested in our open call. So we will have monthly webinars, and the dates will be announced soon on our social media and on our website. So please look at these channels in order to be able to participate again. We are going also to share our newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter. You can find there all the information about the events that the cities will organize in order to launch the open call and to talk with potential applicants. And if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, please go on our website on the home page. At the bottom of the home page, you just need to include your email and you can receive the monthly newsletters. It's important also because you can get there all the news about Synchronicity and the events that we will organize or we will be part of in the next few months. So I've taken all your questions. If you have more questions, please don't feel afraid to add them. I've divided the questions in different categories. One is technical questions, another one is administrative and budget related questions, and cities, consortium and teams questions. We have already quite a lot. We have almost an hour. So I would like to start with the questions related to the cities, consortium and teams because they're relevant. There are quite a lot. So the first question is related to if you want to include a city that is part of the Open and Agile Smart City organization, but is not already a city included in the open call yet, do we need first ensure that they will apply for the open call, get accepted, and later on you apply your solution, or can you do this process separately? So the question is coming from Matevec, and he would like to include Koper and Idrija from Slovenia into the open call as participants. I think this question should be replied by Gemma.
Okay, yes. So if you have like a new city, which is not part of our 8 core pilot cities, they can participate definitely as part of your pilot group. So they will need to apply together with you, and be aware that the cities during the pilot phase, they will need to adapt these minimum interoperability points, these open APIs and shared data models that Martino was talking about. So the city needs to be ready and on board on this systematic, and then you can bring them into your pilot group. So create a consortium yourself and then apply as a consortium. And they will be also a pilot city together with some of our core pilot cities that I mentioned at the very beginning. I don't know if that clarifies your question.
Otherwise, please feel free to ask more. The second question is, if we would like to work with the Synchronicity pilot city, do we already have to confirm their willingness to work with our solution before submitting our application? Yes, that should be part of the consortium while you are submitting your application. Then the second one is, what will be the limitation on the cities that we can partner with? Will the small town also be considered as a city? And if there is an ideal size where they can deploy their solution? Gemma?
So the second one, it's yes, it can be a small, medium, as long as they want to, adopt the Synchronicity minimum interoperability framework. There's not an ideal way, better cities than other. So it's really, we are welcome to what you think it's more useful for you and for the market itself. So yes, you can come with a small city or a small village if they have an IoT system where we can deploy and replicate the same solution in that city and also in some of our core pilot cities. The first one was, Francesca, can you remind me about the partners?
May I just comment on the size of the city as well?
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, we want to achieve scale. So in principle, yes, any city, town, local, municipality, authority, government can join as a partner for sure. But if you take just 3 little villages, well, you show that you can scale across 3 little villages, but you probably will not show scale as a pilot as such. But it would be great, I think, to include both big and small communities. So it's not just for big cities, this is clearly, but it should be shown that it works across different kinds of environments. So if you have like 3 small towns, that would be a very interesting approach. It would reflect the ambition of something called Europe's small giants, because as you know, most communities in Europe are smaller cities, in fact, and towns. So clearly there's a role for this smaller, but just be aware that you should also, or we should as Synchronicity, gauge, I would say, mainstream, large scale. So pay attention also to how small it is. But it's an interesting category, and certainly we are very interested in supporting small towns with few resources, if it can be pulled off. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Martin. And I think the most requested information is related to how we can build a consortium. If Synchronicity can help to build a consortium, or can give contacts directly of the city's representative to potential applicants, or if it is the direct duty to contact them, and what is the process to add a new city. So I'm putting together all these questions to Gemma, so she can provide just a specific one. She already talked about the matchmaking system, but perhaps it's worthwhile to repeat it again, Gemma. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. So as I said before, I mean, we will become neutral. We have to give the same support to all participants in the same way, and that's why we created these mainstream channels. So as I said, we are not going to be actively looking partners for you or for one of you, but we will actually allow you, I mean, to have the platform that can matchmake you with somebody else. And this is going to be on our website. It's not yet there, but it's going to be probably very, very soon, next week, probably, on our website, where you will be able, or a city will be able to express, look, I want to be part of Synchronicity, but I don't know any SME. And the SME will say, actually, I'm looking for a city in, I don't know, France. Is there a city in France? And you will be able to actually matchmake, and there's going to be the contact details there, so you can connect directly with them. So that's going to be one of the things. Of course, if you openly come to one of the clinics, for instance, and you are asking, do you know anyone? And it happens that you know, or that the city itself know, he or she may be able to tell you, look, I know this person is looking for a partner. Nonetheless, we will, everything that we say, we will open to the whole community. We will put this online, because we need to be open and transparent with all the information that we give to everyone, not just only to one specific partner. So again, we are not going to actively support, but we'll give you the platform to do that. And of course, if you attend some of the events we will be doing, there it's a perfect place where you can find potential partners.
If I may comment on this as well, just quickly. Yes, I mean, we remind you that Synchronicity is built around the Open Agile Smart Cities initiative. So that would be a good place to look for partners in that community. There's a council of cities, some are more active than others. There's events like the one just last week in IoT Week in Bilbao, and so on. So I really would suggest that you check out also the activities of OASC over the months. There's a newsletter, there's activities, webinars, and so on. So it is a good source, you could say, of relevant partners, because it's those who have already been looking towards these mechanisms, both from the demand side, so the city side, and certainly from the provider's side.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Gemma. There is a question that is related to this previous one. If the potential applicants can contact directly the city representatives. So we really suggest you to participate in the clinics. There should be more or less every 2 weeks, so you can get in contact with these representatives. As you can see on our websites, every city has one specific contact, but it's important for you that you can get the direct city leads, because often they are communications lead. So perhaps it's not be the direct contact that you can work with better. And in any case, the clinics are really set it up in the way that you can have half an hour to talk with the city representatives. Since we are providing these services, I think it's more relevant for you to get in touch with the direct people. And there is also a question that is related to this one, and I think we didn't cover it yet. So Gemma, please take this into account. They would like to know, the participant, if we have to create letter of support from the cities that are already in part of the 8 pilot cities in Synchronicity, and as well as if they should have requested letter of support to the new cities that would like to enter the consortium.
Yes, very relevant. Yeah. So just to clarify this, you will only need the letter of support from the new cities you bring through your pilot group. You don't need to bring a letter of support of our already existing 8 core pilot cities. So that's the short answer. Yes, for the new ones, not for our core pilot cities.
And also, there is a question related to this, including the funding. We were requesting if, for example, they would like to test the service in Antwerp. Antwerp is already part of the pilot city, should be included in the consortium already in the application, and if this wouldn't be double funding. Actually not, because the 8 pilot cities that are part of Synchronicity cannot be funded again. So they are not eligible for funding, but you should be including them already in the consortium.
Let me clarify 1 second. So yeah, they don't need to add these 8 core pilot cities in their consortium. That will be done externally, only with the new participants. In the application form, you will be able to select the already existing core pilot cities that they want to pilot in, and the ones that you bring new in your pilot group will be immediately part of your piloting cities. So just to clarify that bit. So you don't need to include the core pilot cities in your pilot group. But this is going to be a specific question in the questionnaire. Where do you want to pilot your solution? And we will give you options of the existing core pilot cities. The other ones, they will be immediately considered, the ones that you bring in the pilot group will be immediately considered as your pilot cities, as one of your pilot cities as well.
Okay, and another question that is related to the cities already involved in Synchronicity is, what is the role of Lyon in Synchronicity? Perhaps this can be taken by Martin.
Yes, thank you. We have global partners in Asia and in the Americas, North and South America. And we have, in fact, other partners also in Europe that are not core pilot cities that are rolling out the framework. The role of the Korean partner, so Seongnam in Korea, is to do a 1M2M based full stack implementation of the Synchronicity framework. The role of Portland in the US is more like a follower. The role of Bordeaux is to link with their existing 1M2M standards-based experimentation procurement efforts. And the role of Leon is to do the same based on a fireware basis. Leon has not been so active at the moment, but if there's a pilot coming their way, clearly that would be a good opportunity to get them involved. So there will not be a clinic in Leon. It would be probably a little bit more legwork to get that up and running. That's my perception as it stands at the moment. But just to give the overall picture, we have core pilot cities who have been in from the beginning and also committed to rolling out, and then more activity in Korea than in Mexico, but it should certainly be a possibility, but you would have to check the status of the implementation of the framework and the minimal interoperability mechanisms, which is actually available on the framework session online, where you can also see the endpoints to the framework sandbox and also the different sites, the pilot sites. But maybe Martino can say a little bit more, maybe a little bit later when we go to the technical side, on how can you actually see what is available in each city.
Okay, thank you, Martin. There is another question related to the consortium and what is considered scale. If we can provide an example, which scenario is the best? Few deployments, many cities, or many deployments, fewer cities? Gemma, would you take this one?
What is the best? so the best is that you manage to actually fulfill some of the objectives we want to reach, which is to test the interoperability and replicability of your solution. So, and this can take many shapes and forms. So you can, so you need to show scale. So as long as you can show scale and replicability, that's why we say we would like you to demonstrate your solution in at least 2 cities, but preferably more, because this means that your solution can be easily scaled in several cities. So I mean, that has to be the right amount of cities, which allows you to do something feasible. So we don't want too few cities and neither too many, so that you can really not achieve it. So it has to be somewhere in the middle, something that fits your solution, and your solution can be very different. Maybe someone needs a few to deploy a few pieces of sensors and infrastructure to prove that technology. Others will need many more. So it's really up to each of the applicants to demonstrate and to show what is necessary for them to showcase that actually they can prove and demonstrate interoperability and replicability and scalability of the solutions. I don't know if you, Martin, would like to add something else to that.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Gemma. It's a very good question, and it can be answered in several ways, because Synchronicity as a project needs to demonstrate scale in a different way that I would say each of the pilots do. So Synchronicity is built on the vision that it's not difficult to deploy a lot of technology and a lot of sensors and just roll out services. But it's usually and increasingly not what cities want. They want control, they want replaceability, they want modularity also in their contracts. So what we're trying to demonstrate is that we can have a common, simple technical ground and roll out a lot of services actually across different sectors. So one way of demonstrating scale that we as a project will achieve is we want to be cross-domain. So not just mobility or just quality, air quality censoring something, but actually built on the same fundamental mechanisms, we can do all verticals. So that is one thing that we want to achieve. Now, what does that mean for each pilot? I would say, if you should go for 2 things. You should demonstrate mainstream scale. And scale can mean that you show that you can work in several cities. It also could mean that you can go from one corner of a city to cover the entire municipality, still in several cities. It could be that you go beyond EU. It could be beyond that you reach millions of people. It could be that you have thousands of devices. There are many ways that you can approach scale. So each pilot doesn't have the same objectives as Synchronicity as a whole, which will have something like 20, 25 pilots in total. So all the pilots together should show this variety, but each pilot should have a clear vision of how do we spread this particular service or full stack solution, we can come back to that, across then something, cities, geography, people, devices. So there are many approaches to achieve this, and it's up to you to choose a strategy here. You probably will not tick all the boxes.
Thank you so much, Martin. The other question is if we would like to have pilots in the cities and also users working in the selection, who is the responsible for working in the selection of users and recruitment of users? Is the applicant SME or the city? Gemma?
That's a good one. So you would like to have users. So per se in the evaluation process, we don't have a user per se evaluator. As I said, we have 3 different types of evaluators. If you need to have users, I would say first, I guess that you are already working in an environment and you will know how to at least achieve your user community already around your geography. But how can you do this in the project in other geographies, because you need to reach the scale? I guess that this would be something very useful to propose or to ask when you go to the clinics, depending on where you go and how can we reach the community. We are a big, large-scale pilot, and we are covering a lot of geographies. It's difficult for us as the leads of the work packages within that to reach those communities, but certainly the cities themselves will have a way how to reach them out. So I would say go to some of the clinics wherever you want to pilot your solution, pose this question to the city lead that you of that place, of that specific place. I would say that would be probably the best approach. Any other further comments, Martin?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you so much, Gemma. There are still some questions about the cities, but let's go now into the technical questions, and if we still have time, we will reply to them. Otherwise, you will find the replies directly in our website, in the frequently asked question systems, in the open call section. So the first technical question is, in what way are the Synchronicity tools open source? It seems for the applicants, potential applicants, to be a big condition to make Smart City technically interoperable, replicable, and scalable. Sorry. So I think Martino, you can reply directly to this.
Yes, for sure. As I said before, Synchronicity, one of the objectives of Synchronicity is to provide solutions that are open and standard. In terms of tools that we provide, all the components that we provide and we will provide in the future weeks will be open source. So the most of these for the moment are based on the firmware ecosystem. So it's possible to use these components to install and to freely use. For sure, every component can have a specific license, but are open source license. So in this sense, it's possible to use these components. But it is important to say that we are not related to a specific technology. So the ones we provided in the project are simply reference implementation. So something that can be possible to use, ready to use. But the SME and the other companies can provide other specific implementation of these components. The only, I would say, requirements is the compliance with the API specification, so the interoperability mechanism, and the data model that we are going to define in the project.
Thank you, Martino. The second question is about fireware. Is it compulsory to use it? And if so, would it be free of charge?
Okay, again, fireware is one of the solutions that we provide, because the fireware ecosystem already provides some useful components that can be easily used, deployed, but it's not compulsory. Again, you can use any type of technology. For example, you can use one, I don't know, specific gateway for the IoT management. It's not necessary to use the firewall one, or you can use other contest management system, contest brokers that are compliant with the specification, for example, in this case for Synchronicity with the NGSI. Regarding the free to use, in terms of usage of the components, most of these components are free to use and to deploy, but the project itself, Synchronicity, doesn't provide the execution environment to deploy the services. We provide, I would say, a cloud environment that is a sandbox to test the services, to test the API, to test the infrastructure, but every applicant should provide also a specific deployment environment. That means a cloud instance in which deploy the specific services of the application. Regarding fireware, it is also possible to ask to the fireware foundation an access to the fireware lab, so to have a specific tenant to test and to use some fireware generic enabler, but this is not related specifically to Synchronicity, but to the fireware initiative. So for this, I think you should also ask information to the fireware community.
Thank you, Martino. And the other question is, how similar is the Synchronicity technical platform to the one developed in Organicity?
Perhaps I can answer this one, Francesca. This is Martin.
Yeah. Sure.
So you're exactly right, Miguel, who asked this question. Organicity was the first reference implementation of the OASC mechanisms, and Synchronicity has learned from that, I say, but it's much more flexible. It has evolved a lot. Many of the constraints that were in the Organicity setup, the tools and so on, do not exist. It's also a sign that the whole field has evolved. It's much more agile, as Martino has outlined. There's a reference implementation based on 1M2M coming from the Korean and other colleagues. So it's much more mainstream. I think that's the short answer. It has the same ambition, but it's much more usable.
Okay, thank you so much, Martin. Another question from Martino is, does the solution need to use also existing data sources of the Synchronicity pilot cities?
Yes, I would say yes. This is one of also the objectives. So to reuse and to take advantage from the existing data source of the cities. I think this should be the first step. So it's necessary to check which information are available in the city. We will update this list in the website periodically, because for sure for the moment we have a certain number of data sets available, but this data set will be improved in the next weeks. So I think the starting point is the data set and the information available from the city, but it's also possible for sure for the applicants to access and to provide, for example, access to new information that are available in the city, so that are not strictly provided by, I don't know, the municipality, but that in any case are available in the city and can be for sure harmonized in terms of data models and also accessed through the Synchronicity API, so can be part also of the application of the services.
Okay, thank you, Martino. And another question that is related to this one is, how do we define Internet of Things, in the sense of which kind of data can be considered for being included in the proposal? If, for example, can be included smartphone generated data, or if it has to be new hardware. This is also related to the budget questions. A lot of potential applicants has requested that if they can include hardware costs into the budget. So I think that first of all, Martino, you can reply about the data, and then Gemma about the costs to be included in the proposal in terms of hardware, if it is eligible for funding or not?
Yes, regarding the data type, basically we have no specific limits on the typology. For sure, the application, the data should be related to the specific domain that the applicants that we see for the open call. But as you can saw before, we have also the possibility to apply for new domains. So it's possible also to include other type of data. In terms of IoT devices, or I would say other smartphone or other device, we have no specific limits. The only requirements is that this data should be in any case included in Synchronicity, using again the data models and the API, the way to be exposed in the framework.
Okay, thank you, Martino. Gemma, will you reply about the hardware costs if they're eligible for funding, please?
Yeah, so just for you to know, there is in the annex of the guidelines for applicants, like all the points of eligibility cost and ineligible costs. So just going to the question of hardware. So what we call it eligible, it's material cost. So if you need to buy one sensor to do a small test and to check a few things, this is eligible. However, we are not gonna fund infrastructure costs, meaning you need to buy all the sensors that you need to actually make it operable. So small hardware, small bits and pieces, yes. Big infrastructure like deployment of big sensors, no.
Thank you, Gemma. Martino, there is still some questions about technicals for you, and this is very relevant. Will there be some kind of a marketplace dating site where they can get in dialogue with other possible relevant partners? We have a marketplace, but it's a bit different from the matchmaking system. So perhaps, Martino, you can start with the marketplace, and then we can just repeat a few things about the matchmaking system with Gemma.
Yes, probably this is more related to the matchmaking system. Anyway, regarding the Synchronicity marketplace, the idea is to provide a marketplace that has two main phases. The first is the IoT data marketplace, in which all the data sets that are relevant in the project, so that come from the cities, will be exposed in a catalog, so it will be possible to search for relevant data set, in particular the IoT real-time data sets, and will be possible to search for this and to access. The access can be free or can be related to a specific payment, so we will activate all the monetization process and also the related functionality for SLA monitoring and agreement. So this is, but also beside that, there is another phase of the marketplace that is the IoT product marketplace, in which is a way also to put in contact, in this case, cities, SME, for example, or other external stakeholder interested in Synchronicity, and the IoT device producers that can produce technologies that are compliant with the Synchronicity specification technology. So this is also will be a way to put in contact and to improve all the ecosystem also from the southbound part.
Thank you, Martino. Just the last question for technical. If the potential applicants have a technology that is not built on an open API and they possess their own technology, are they out of Synchronicity?
I would say no. Synchronicity is a project in which interoperability, the integration is very relevant. So I think that some applicants can have their existing product or application, but the idea is if they, I think, demonstrate that their product can be integrated with the Synchronicity API, data models, and using Synchronicity capabilities can be replicated in different cities, I think that this will be in any case good. So it's not, but Martin for sure can after specify this point, it's not necessary to provide, I would say, anything in open source. It's not necessary to use open source as 100%. It's possible also to use specific proprietary technology, but the matter is to enable through Synchronicity the interoperability and use for sure also open API and data models. But Martin can say something more about that.
Yes, just to be quick. So in fact, we don't enforce any licenses because they're very local. Also preferences in the cities on, sharing of source code, sharing of data, and so on. What we do is that we encourage open license-free software and data sharing, always through the marketplace, so that the conditions are well known. But what we do enforce strongly is that the minimal interoperability mechanisms, which is a baseline that's always moving and is vetoed by the OASC cities in a roadmap, that is the interfaces, you could say, are kept. So we try to make a loose coupling where we don't tie proprietary interfaces to solutions, but on the other hand, we leave the implementation completely between the supply and demand in the market. This is like many other specifications where we have interoperability specifications, not implementation specifications. Thanks.
Thank you, Martino, and thank you, Martin. Just final question that has arrived now. Martino, can you please explain in a few lines what is FiWare and why it's relevant for Synchronicity?
Okay, so FiWare is an initiative that started several years ago. It's an initiative funded by European Commission. That it's basically now it's an ecosystem that which are provided open components. So there is a big community, so you can find any information on the internet. So it's basically offer a catalog of open components in several domains, so from the IoT to the cloud and to the data visualization and so on. For Synchronicity, FiWare is relevant in the sense that some of the components for the reference implementation are based on FiWare because basically it's a good community. We have experience on that. We can give support for this. But again, is not limited to this, so it's possible to use any type of technology, not simply related to FiWare.
Thank you so much, Martino. We ended up with a technical question. Now we will dive into the budget and administrative question.
Francesca, just if I may, just before we close this one off, just to link it, because there are many questions also about the relationship between FiWare and OASC. So I think it's relevant just to mention that FiWare has certainly been one of the inspirations for the key components and some of the minimal interoperability mechanisms, including the context information management, which is now brought to a consensus-based forum in ETSI, standardization and so on. But it's also important to say that FiWare, as Martino says, is not required to implement the OASC mechanisms. In Manchester, they use Cisco and BT. There are other places, as you know, where they want to do an 1M2M stack, which is one of the global IoT standards. So just to say that OASC is very pragmatic. We use what works, and it's mandated and vetoed by the cities, right? So we don't want to build anything that's really connected only to one community, because again, we want to reach mainstream and large scale. So the helpful communities are certainly encouraged and are actually contributing to this, also bringing even open source components in that some cities find relevant. But we also have to acknowledge that not all cities want these things from certain communities. They want other things. That's what cities are. Cities are fickle, political, complex things. So we really, and the mandate from OSCE is to cater for all cities, no matter who you want to be serviced by, as long as you can implement the minimal interoperability mechanisms. So supporting everything that Martino said, but also linking it to OSCE, which really has the mandate from many different cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Now going to the budget questions. Is there a minimum of number of years your company has to exist to be considered as an SME? Gemma?
No. We don't look at the limitation of when the SME was created. The only thing that we will be looking at is that it's mature to actually be able to scale their solution. So anything that can demonstrate that the team is capable, that the technology is capable, it's there. This is what it's going to be evaluated, not the years per se of how long this have been surviving. Nonetheless, of course, if it has been surviving for a while, it means that it has certain experience, but it's not a determining factor, let's say.
Thank you, Gemma. And the other question is, the 100, 200, and 300K apply only to the funding or to the budget? I think it's important here to explain how much is eligible for funding, what is the percentage as well.
Yes, so actually the 100, 200, 300 is up to how much you can get really on your hands. So it means that you can apply for, if you are applying alone, so a 20% more, but you will get only funded by this 20% less, which is going to be a maximum of 100. So you can apply for 120,000, but you will get only 100,000. You can apply for 200,000 alone, but you will get only 100,000. There is if you download the toolkit, there is also in the template, the budget template. And in one of the tabs, one of the latest tabs, there are all the case scenarios of how we will be distributing the money. So you can really have a look and check there, and you will see what is the distribution of money. So the principle is you can only get up to 100,000 if you apply alone, up to 200,000 for the group if you apply in a group of 2, and up to 300,000 if you apply for a group of 3 or more. This is for the group, and the cities and large business only 60,000 as maximum. This is what it comes to your hand. But you can of course apply for a higher budget because there is this 80-20% ratio. Just have a look at the guidelines, at the budget template. It will be more clear there.
Thank you, Gemma. Another question that is related to this, if, for example, we have one SME in the consortium plus 2 cities, this means that we have 3 organizations and they can ask for up to 300K or not?
Absolutely, yes, correct. You are 3 organizations, you can ask for 300,000K or even a little bit more, but you will only get funded up to 300,000K. And the cities can only get 60,000 each.
Okay. Thank you so much. The other question is, what are the contracting conditions if the SMEs and new cities need to sign the SynchroniCity grant agreement, or if this is going through a different channels, administrative channel?
So correct. So when the winning applicants win, we will be signing a contract, which this is going to be between Future Cities Catapult, so the organization I belong to, because we are running the open call, and the SME or the pilot group itself. So the pilot group has to have already their own agreement there, and we will sign this contract. Also, as an annex to this contract, which we call it pilot agreement, there's going to be all the sharing agreements between you, so the SME or the pilot group, and each of the cities you will be piloting in, where it's going to be the basis of the sharing of the data and assets between you and the cities. So there's going to be these two. These two contract signs, the pilot agreement between Future Cities, Catapult and you, and the sharing agreements between you and the pilot cities. All this information, so we have also again in the templates, if you download the handbook, the toolkit, you'll see that there is already the pilot agreement there for you to have a look. I mean, this is what you will need to sign later on if you win, but just for you to have a look, what are the basis of this contract? You can check. It's a very legal type of document. But basically, if you win, we will hand to you all this information, the pilot agreements, the sharing agreements. We will also provide you with the information on what's going to happen during the pilot phase. But this will come later when you win the project.
Thank you, Gemma. Related to this is if there are any thresholds for each evaluation criteria you were describing before in your presentation.
No, so as I said, it's going to be the technical feasibility, that's going to be one of a hard line, but then it's going to go on the score, on the overall score. So 14 and above will go through, and then there's going to be the evaluation, the one-day evaluation. So there's not, we haven't said, let's say, a minimum score, but it will impact in the overall score. So we are going to look at the overall score.
Thank you, Gemma. And just the final question about the budget. If we have a pilot group of 2 or 3 organizations led by an SME and is funded with up to 60K, is this funding eligible for allowing the new city to be compliant with the SynchroniCity API only?
So again, it's if the 60,000 it's enough to make the city compliant, no?
Yes,
is that?
but they're asking if the funding, the 60K, can be funded only for allowing the new city to be compliant with the SynchroniCity API, only for that specific activity.
If you go, so the city, in there is also a guidelines for cities where we also specify the cost, what is eligible for their cost, and there it's stated. So there they can also ask for travel budget. They can also, there are a few elements that they are eligible to cover those costs. So it's travel budget, it's to be compliant with the framework, and a few other points that can be found in that documentation. Okay. So not just only the framework.
If I can just add a quick comment, it's to acknowledge that it does actually take something for a new city to onboard. And as you say, Gemma, there are several points that can be, several types of activities that can be supported. So we recognize that most cities would need some kind of, manpower locally, even just to interface with the pilot group.
Okay. Thank you so much, Martin. We will finish now with some few questions about the consortium and teams, since we still have 10 minutes. One question is for Gemma. Can an SME participate that already runs a pilot on another EU-funded project in a different city?
The direct answer would be yes, as long as it's not the same. So it's always about, are you exactly testing the same in the same conditions? I guess probably not. So in that case, yes, you can participate.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to say something more. You cannot use extra EU funding as co-funding, right? So there are limits to what you can use as co-funding. So depending on what the question is, you should really check the rules for the various funding sources that you want to put together here. That's very important because there are very specific rules when you use different types of EU funding together. But another point, which I think is very relevant, you remember in the beginning I said SynchroniCity is out of a family of 5 large-scale pilots, and 2 of the others are also having large-scale pilot open calls. So if you want to combine food and farming with something in a community and even active and healthy aging, fine. You can even combine the pilots of course, you should do it in a way so that you can carry it out without getting the funding in all places. But just to say, we really encourage that you do more than just one-off projects. We would like to see you integrating this as part of your strategy, either as a company or as the strategy of the cities you involve. We don't want this to be just, project bubbles, project making for the sake of projects. We want to drive an evolution of the societies.
Thank you, Martin. Another questions, actually were two questions, but they are related. If an SME can run with more than one project, and if they can apply for two separate pilots with different projects. Gemma?
So they can apply as many times as they want, which is quite costly in terms of their time, but only one will be funded. So they can only get funded once as an organization within SynchroniCity. But of course, they are open to apply if they want. I would check that though, because it's time and effort. So I would suggest to really focus on what you want to really provide and make all the efforts in getting at least one very well-founded project.
Thank you, Gemma. Another question is if the universities can apply and be included in a consortium.
So we haven't included universities here in this. It's very much on the scalable and commercial and sustainable side of it. So we are really focusing really on small and medium enterprises, on large businesses, and on cities mainly. So we are not envisaging the incorporation of universities.
Just to be specific here.
Yeah.
Yes, so they can join, but they cannot receive funding. Yeah, so we have to separate the two things. They can actually join, and they can also join with co-funding, I believe, but they cannot receive funding. Is that correct?
Correct. So yeah, so basically, as we mentioned, this is open to everyone, but only very specific people can receive funding. Very specific organizations belonging to the EU Horizon 2020 associative programs. But if you want to bring a city from another part of the world, they are welcome. They just will not receive funding. The same with academia. The same with anybody, any other organization you may think can add value and they would like to participate in it, even if they cannot receive the funding.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. Just the last question about the challenges and teams. The applicants were asking if there is further documentation describing what we mean by challenge and if, for example, smart home and smart building use cases could be appropriate for the call.
So this is where we put quite of an open scope around the challenges within the open call guidelines for applicants in the toolkit that you can download from the website. You can find a little bit more what a challenge means. So there's a little bit bigger description of it. In terms of smart homes, I would say that would go into the open challenge, probably. It's not really fitting one of the challenges that we are proposing. So that's where there is this white card. And this is really, as an SME or as a pilot group, you'll need to ensure that this is something that the cities would or are interested in. So that's going to be the work ahead for you during all these months. How do you find out which cities could be interested? We added some information in the Cities Card, which is in the SynchroniCity framework document. There is like an additional annex where cities mention what they are interested in. This can give you a hint which city, which of our core pilot cities could be interested in solutions like the ones that you're proposing.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. Just one new question came out. I think you already covered it. Perhaps it's better to repeat it. If a new city would like to join the consortium, can they apply for funding for up to 60K or for the sensors, just for the sensors?
So yeah, so if a new city joins the consortium, they can get funded up to 60,000 K. The eligible costs for the cities are stated in the guidelines. This covers compliance, how the city becomes compliant with these interoperability points and mechanisms of the Synchronicity framework. It can cover travel costs. It can cover this onboarding of the city into the Synchronicity, let's say, project or vision.
Yes, but actually they cannot ask up to 60K, whole 60K just for the infrastructure and the sensors.
No.
Right?
We said that infrastructure, so we are not going to fund, even an SME cannot ask for just 60K for infrastructure. So we are not, infrastructure costs are not eligible. Material costs are, so something much smaller. If you need one sensor to test a few things, or a piece or a gateway or something that you needed, that could be covered, but not infrastructure costs like buying all the sensors. No, this wouldn't be included.
Thank you, Gemma. And just one final question. There are still some related questions to the how we can reach the cities, how we can get in contact with city representatives. We already replied to this question, but it's important for you to know that we have these clinics we will put in place, and on via our website you will be able to see a calendar with all the clinics with the cities. We are now in the process of deciding the dates with all the pilot cities already part of the Synchronicity. So soon, potentially by next week, you will be able to access this information and to see when you can book a clinic, so half an hour telco with the cities. This is the best way to approach them because it's a process. It's in place for you. It's a nice offer that we provide to you, and it's really to get in contact with the right person. So please follow these instructions so you can really get the best out of it, like we hope that we did with our open call webinar. We just ended with all the questions. We are just 1 minute before 12. So we are really happy and glad to have you all on board. It was quite a big bunch of people. We will announce soon the next webinar that will happen in July, mid-July, basically. We will have all the handouts and presentations will be included in the website. The handouts are already in the website, but also the presentation will be in the website. We will give information, as I said, about the post and that we did it today, and we will send you later after this webinar a survey that will be relevant for us to get more information about the potential interested applicants, but also about what do you think of this webinar, so we can implement them better next time. We hope so. So thank you so much for having participated. If Martin would like to just close the meeting with his own perspectives.
Thank you very much, Francesca. I just want to thank you again, both to the team and to the audience. I think it's quite overwhelming for us, so many people are interested in joining this ambition. So thanks for coming, and we look forward to supporting you, and also hopefully to have some very clear guidance for you both on the web and the many other channels that we are setting up here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you to everyone. I will close now the meeting. And feel free to ask us questions via the help desk system or the forum. We are here for you, so don't be afraid. Go on our website, follow our social media channels, and let's build together the Synchronicity Smart City framework. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.